All right, well, I'd love to take you through the ensemble a little bit. It's one of the most fun aspects of using India. To load up the ensemble, I'm going to go up a menu here, out of the percussion folder and into the ensemble folder. And there it is, the India ensemble. There's only one ensemble. I'll drag it over here and drop it to load it up. So the ensemble is sort of a smattering of all of the elements of India, all of the percussion, the 9 different percussion instruments, the 6 different melodic instruments, all playing, not necessarily at once all the time, but in tandem. The thing that I find the most interesting about the ensemble is the way that it's approachable from both a sequence point of view and a give me a quick Indian ensemble point of view. So you can play the MIDI patterns from the ensemble pretty easily just by triggering it with a key or hitting the play button right here. And we'll get more into that and how to pick the patterns out a little bit later on down the road. But the other thing that I love about it is that you can completely ignore the sequenced element and just have access to an entire Indian ensemble. So all of these instruments are kind of mapped out across the keyboard, including some elements of the melodic ones. Now you'll notice most of them are kind of hanging around the root of C, and that makes sense because I've got the C picked out over here. But of course you could program in your track to change that root key as the song goes along so that the notes that you're playing match the tonality of the scale that you're picking. Of course, you could always open up those melodic instruments as melodic instruments and not in the ensemble and have full access to every single note and play chromatically and even in a microtonally detuned basis if you wanted to. But it's pretty cool that you have access to this sort of miniaturized version. So, of course, it's really cool to have access to all 65 different ways that you could hit a ghatam. But it is also cool to have this ensemble together where you've got the most common notes you might, or the most common strikes that you might use on a dholak or a ghatam, and the most common notes that you might use on a tabla, and then some basic melodic elements of some of those melodic instruments like a sitar or harmonium. So to have this sort of condensed version into the ensemble is really cool. You can play some of the pre-programmed patterns, but you can also just use it yourself rather than loading up 5 or 6 different tracks with all these instruments. Sort of load up this quick track that allows you to quickly access some of the neatest little elements of those instruments in India. So now that you've got the ensemble loaded up, the next thing we'll want to do is take a look at the different snapshot elements that we can use inside this ensemble to change the sound around a little bit.